I'm Alexia Galati. In this work with Aidong Liu and Riley Choppa at UNC Charlotte, we explore the sense-making process in immersive visualization by examining users' interactions and their neural activity with FNIRS. In this project, we leverage augmented reality and we develop a visual analytics system to examine some open empirical questions about sense-making in immersive environments. Here, we use our visual analytics system to explore the sense-making process through studying user behaviors and their neural activity in a classical visualization problem, a visual comparison and clustering task. We address the following questions. First, during sense-making in immersive environments, how do task constraints influence the user's interactions and their neural activity? Second, what predicts task performance in sense-making? Do the user's interactions and neural activity relate to how accurate they are in the task? Our work is informed by the theoretical perspectives of embodied and distributed cognition, which posit that spatial arrangements are used to support cognitive processing. We predict that users' interactions, for instance, increased body movement and increased physical interactions with task-relevant objects, can support sense-making. And additionally, these interactions can help offload cognitive load when the task is more difficult. We also predict that this will also be indicated in the user's neural signatures during sense-making as well. Now, in terms of the effects of different types of spatial layouts, there's evidence that larger spatial layouts generally support reasoning. However, there's still mixed evidence about whether some types of layouts, namely 3D layouts, support reasoning better than traditional 2D displays, 2D layouts. So our predictions with respect to the effects of layout type were exploratory. But we were interested in exploring whether 3D layouts, by being more immersive, might support better sense-making performance. So in our study, 14 participants completed a visual correlation task. In visual correlation tasks, participants group, match, or cluster images based on visual features. And participants were attached to the FNIRS apparatus and donned the Microsoft HoloLens simultaneously so that neural sequence data were collected as images were presented in augmented reality. Participants first familiarized themselves with the system, and then they completed 8 experimental trials that involved different images. Now, critically, in these 8 trials, we manipulated 2 factors, 2 dimensions, one being layout type. Half of the trials involved a planar 2D format, and the other half involved a cylindrical 3D format. We also manipulated the level of difficulty of the trial, or its cognitive load, with half of the trials involving low cognitive load, namely the comparison and clustering of 5 images, and the other half being of high cognitive load, 10 images. So we have this 2x2 design. Our visualization system runs on a local host. It permits interactive and flexible visualization of users' behaviors, for example, visualizing user interactions with images from the HoloLens in a particular time frame of the study or during specific trials, which we can select in the time bar. We can also explore the statistical distributions of the data. The PSA panel visualizes data distributions from the 32 FNIRS signals that we collect, subjecting them to dimensionality reduction. And we can display PSA results for individual users or groups of users and explore individual nodes. And we can also select subsets of the data to explore, for example, all the trials that involve 2D layouts. So back to our research questions, did task constraints, namely the type of layout and cognitive load of the trial, influence the user interactions? We found that in terms of cognitive load, yes, it did influence user interactions. For the more difficult trials with 10 images as opposed to 5, there were more image moves, images were moved over a longer distance, and there were longer gaze durations on images. Interestingly, in terms of layout, there was no effect, meaning there were no differences between the 2D and 3D layouts. Now, our second question was about sense-making performance. So we considered user interactions across different ranges of performance, from low to high. And what you see across all these different interactions is a consistent pattern. As users engage in more interactions, they were more accurate. And what's interesting, as you can see from the difference between the blue and orange lines, is that this effect was modulated by cognitive load. So the benefit of this interactions was generally greater for the high cognitive load condition. We found consistent patterns for neural activity from FNIRS as well. Users were more accurate when higher sums of oxyhemoglobin and deoxyhemoglobin concentration were recorded. And again, neural activation depended on cognitive load. Now, in addition to these quantitative analyses, we used our system to explore users' interactions and the statistical distribution of their FNIRS in PSA. For example, based on these PSA distributions, we can examine different users' interactions in the HoloLens. So if we consider the center region of the PSA distribution as representing common stages of cognition during sense making, and the nodes outside in the periphery to represent unique behaviors, we can explore what types of behaviors these demonstrate and detect consistent patterns. To conclude, we found that during sense making, people used more interactions on demanding trials, and that was associated with better performance regardless of layout type. Additionally, neural activity exhibited parallel patterns, indicating that cerebral hemodynamic activity from FNIRS is a valid index of cognitive effort. Moreover, we identified common and unique patterns of interaction associated with cognitive effort and with different sense-making strategies. Our visual analytics system, both its user interface and the researcher's visualization interface, can be adapted to support and investigate a variety of complex decision-making and problem-solving tasks relevant to real-world uses. Our system can be used to systematically examine sense-making under different layouts, different tasks, different durations or timeframes, and different user groups, and can therefore contribute to theoretical advances in embodied and distributed cognition. Thank you for your attention.